Okay, well, it is 7 o'clock, a few minutes after, so I appreciate everyone just waiting with us. I want to introduce myself on behalf of the Schaumburg Township District Library. My name is Patty Smolin. I am a business reference librarian, and I would like to introduce you to Tempia Courts. Tempia is our presenter for this evening's program, which is the ABCs for Business Success. Tempia Courts is the partner with the law firm of Pluymert, MacDonald Hargrove Lee, and she will cover critical considerations for every individual interested in success in business and entrepreneurship. She will share tips for seeking input from key advisors, understanding and selecting the proper business structure for your venture, assessing your cash position, identifying your customers, and solidifying your connections, especially in response to the business challenges posed by COVID-19 and shelter in place. So Tempia, thank you so very much on behalf of the library for teaming up with us and for bringing this quality presentation to us on Zoom.
Thank you so much, Patty. I'm happy to be a guest, and I'm grateful to you and the Schaumburg Township District Library.
Thank you. This presentation was initially supposed to be going live on YouTube, and unfortunately we've had a tech glitch that prevented us from making that happen this evening. However, it is being recorded and it will be available by tomorrow afternoon on YouTube, and it will be up there for the next couple of weeks in case you want to watch through again. So Tempia, I'm going to leave the floor to you.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight's presentation. As Patty stated, I am an attorney with the law firm of Pluymert, MacDonald Hargrove Lee. Our main office is in Hoffman Estates, and we also have a second office in Des Plaines. We serve clients throughout the state of Illinois. However, the bulk of our client base is concentrated in the northwest suburbs, and we'd love to chat with you about any of your individual or business needs. As a part of my practice, I represent for-profit businesses and not-for-profit tax-exempt organizations. I assist businesses, organizations, whether they're just starting out or those that have been in existence for a while, single, entrepreneur or employer-employee businesses, up to those that have hundreds of employees in multiple locations. As a part of tonight's presentation, I'll share with you tips and information that I share with my clients, and helping you to spot issues, spot concerns that I see with businesses, and also in some cases not-for-profit organizations that I really want to bring not only to your attention, but to those who may be in your network as well. Things to help you be successful in business and to continue to grow your business, whether you're just starting out or you're currently an existing business owner. Tonight, our topic, ABCs for business success. I chose the ABCs because it's easy to remember and will help us to focus on three core groups of topics, issues that we should consider. ABCs for business success, what every business owner should know. Of course, as an attorney, I have a disclaimer. This presentation is not intended to be legal, tax, accounting, or other professional advice, and should not be relied upon as such. Your individual situation will likely vary, and so therefore you should consider consulting with an attorney to speak specifically about your business or other legal needs. And let me switch this a little bit. I'm having a slight issue, it seems, with PowerPoint. Just a moment. And there we are. We'll start with the first in our ABCs, the A category, your advisors. Who are your key advisors in business? I like to refer to them as your team, your core team, starting first with the accountant, the person who helps you to mind the money. Proceeding next to your attorney, as well as your banker, insurance agent and broker, as well as a financial planner. With your advisors, as we talk about the other topics this evening, we'll cover the things that you should not only be mindful of, but information that you yourself should also glean from, get from, request from your key advisors. So what do your key advisors have to say about critical issues such as, with your accountant, what is your cash position? On any given day, week, month, year of your business, what cash do you have available for your ongoing operations? But most importantly, how much cash do you need to meet your expenses, either daily, weekly, monthly? Depending on the nature of your business, you may need to check your cash position more frequently than other businesses. Touch base with your accountant certainly about that critical item. Cash flow challenges. Do you work in a business where you do the bulk of your business activity during a certain season of the year? Are you, for instance, in the landscaping business or landscaping industry, construction industry, whereby the bulk of your business would occur and the bulk of your revenue come in during a certain period of the year? If that's the case, you may have cash flow challenges in the balance of the year. So make sure you cover that with your accountant as well. Reporting. How often do you need to report? How often should you report? And how often must you report? In terms of the musts, you may have quarterly tax filing obligations. If you have a loan through a bank or other lending institution, they may have certain covenants, obligations that you may have that require you to report your business status and financial position at certain points throughout the year, whether it's quarterly, monthly, more frequently, less frequently. And what financial records should you maintain and for how long? Record retention is critical for any business to make sure you not only comply with the law, but most importantly, you keep only those records on hand that you yourself would need as well in your business, for your accountant to refer back to, your attorney, or for yourself individually for your business. And year-end planning, very important issue, especially with regard to cash flow challenges. And also being able to take advantage of certain tax considerations, tax benefits. Don't wait until the last month of the year to begin to take a look at what you should be mindful of for tax filing purposes or decisions that need to be made to put you in the best position from a tax and accounting standpoint. So year-end planning, talk with your accountant about the timing for year-end planning. Is that something you do in the last quarter of the year, or is that something that you should be mindful of more frequently during the year? With regard to your advisors and the accountant in particular, financial records. First off, you should have records that can be audited, not just for third-party reasons. Let's say your bank, in connection with your financing or your loan situation, requires your records to be made available for audit. Certainly that's a situation where you must make sure your records are in a good form where they can be audited, but also for your own purposes, for your own due diligence and being mindful of your own business. Your records should be in a position whereby you can have them audited to make sure everything is up to snuff for yourself and also for those to whom you must report, like a lender. Or in some cases, depending on your industry, you may have to report to a bonding company or others. Financial statements, very important, should be prepared and or reviewed by an accountant at least yearly. I recommend quarterly. Again, being mindful of your cash position, being mindful of the cash that's available in your business, but also the cash that you need for your ongoing business operations. If you're not having those financial statements prepared and reviewed, not just with the accountant, but for you to review them with the accountant, you could have some surprises and some problems. So it's important to make sure that you have those financial statements prepared and or reviewed by an accountant at least yearly, preferably quarterly. Cash reserves, highly desirable. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and when the shutdown, I call it, or timeout, depending on your perspective, happened in March of this year, there were not only individuals, families, but also businesses that were caught by surprise. And those that did not have cash reserves available have had some tough times, even tougher than others. So always consider for your business having some sort of a cash reserve available. How much depends on the nature of your business and perhaps also the time of the year, in particular if you have a seasonal business. So stay close to your accountant on that issue and talk about what type of cash reserves you should have available for your business. Record retention, making sure you keep those critical records again on hand for your reference, for your accountant's reference, your attorney's reference, but also if there are some musts, if you have compliance issues or lending situations, again, what records can and should be maintained and to be produced as needed. And keep those records for the applicable periods. I recommend that businesses have a record retention policy. Your accountant can stay close with you on that, but an attorney can certainly help you prepare a good records retention policy that you, as well as your key executive employees, can refer back to in understanding clearly what records need to be maintained and for how long. Lastly, in connection with your financial records, they enable you also to be able to keep track of your tax obligations and to make sure that you're paying those taxes when due. Your next key advisor, the attorney. Like myself, you certainly should have an attorney on your team, someone to help you make sure that your business is not only in good standing, but also that you're complying with the law and also whatever regulatory obligations you may have, compliance obligations, that you're meeting those so that you don't have any trouble down the road or in the life cycle of your business. With the attorney, you should discuss your business structure. Do you have an entity like a corporation or an LLC, or do you not? If you don't have one, should you have one? That's certainly something that should be discussed with an attorney. What are your liability risks, depending on the nature of your business? Are you in, again, the construction industry? Do you have a business that relies heavily on transportation? Those types of businesses have a higher level of liability. Are you a home-based business owner and you're selling products either over the internet through an e-commerce business, or you have a small retail operation? In those cases, your liability risks may be different, not as high or as obvious as those in the construction industry where they're dealing with dangerous equipment, but still there are some liabilities, and it's important to understand what those are, what those risks are, and how best to protect yourself, your business, and ultimately your own personal assets. Talk with your attorney about those key business documents, like leases, not just leases for real estate if you lease an office suite, but also for any equipment that may be subject to a lease, or vehicles. Customer contracts, making sure you have those available as well, and understanding how those records should be maintained, where and for how long. Record keeping and records retention. We talked about that in the context of the tax and accounting situation that you would discuss with your accountant, but also important for legal purposes. If you have employees, there are certain obligations for records that must be maintained, like time records, and for how long you must keep those. Also, the employee files, what those employee files should contain and how long they should be maintained. Make sure you discuss that with your attorney. And business continuation, also referred to as business succession. This is important if you are operating the business alone as a single owner. What is your plan in the event of a serious illness or untimely passing? What's the plan for continuing the business in the event of those two situations? Also, what is your plan to exit the business? Whether you're leaving to retire permanently or you desire to pass the business along to family members, you should have a plan in place, and an attorney is a key member of your team to help you put that plan together, document that, and to make sure it can be used and processed seamlessly in the event of any of those unfortunate situations, or if you decide to sell your business or pass it along to family members. Corporate records, discussing those with your attorney. Maintaining accurate and up-to-date records are very important, especially if your business is structured as a corporation. One of the corporate formalities, as we call it, those are the requirements to be certain that you have a corporation that is a valid legal entity separate and apart from you as the owner to protect you from personal liability. You have to maintain certain corporate records, documenting at the very least for a corporation, election of the members of your board of directors, as well as the officers. And in the case of an LLC, you would have members as the owners as opposed to shareholders, or managers as opposed to the officers. Approvals of significant transactions like the purchase or sale of major equipment, capital improvements, or borrowing. Also in that case, those records should be up to date and reflect those significant transactions, as well as your tax status, staying close to both the attorney and the accountant on that issue. Those records should be updated at least once per year. Customer and vendor contracts. You should have written agreements with both your vendors and your customers. Use form agreements that are customized for your business. The internet is a fantastic resource. There's a lot of information available out there, and there are at times contracts that may be applicable to your business, but they're not customized for your business. Be very careful. It's much better for you and your business to make sure that you consult with a knowledgeable attorney who can work with you to prepare or revise a contract in a way that's customized for your business and to protect your business interests. Negotiate. Everything is negotiable, even in small transactions. An attorney can assist you with that But for yourself, keeping those records, those contracts can help you in the negotiations with those customers as well as those vendors or suppliers. Tracking and reserving for warranty obligations. Depending on the nature of your business, you may want to offer your customers a warranty. Let's say that you're a roofer or you're a plumber and you're doing some work, and the customer, as an add-on, would love to have a warranty. That's a guarantee for some period that your services, if for some reason there's a problem, you will step in to make the situation right. Making sure you have those contracts on hand to document those warranty obligations can help you to make sure that you're meeting your obligations, but most importantly, that you're not putting yourself out there in such a way that you're agreeing to take on more than you're not contractually obligated to do. Keep careful records of all of your obligations, whether it's to your customers, whether it's to your vendors, and not just records of the obligations, but understanding what those are. Your next key advisor, your banker, that person who also helps you on the money end. What does your banker have to say about your credit availability? If you're in a position where you need financing, additional capital to run your business, what is your credit like from a business perspective? And what availability do you have? But also, if you already have a pre-existing lending arrangement with your bank, what availability do you have on that line of credit that you can tap into, especially if you end up in difficult times like we are in the midst of currently? What is your credit worthiness? Again, what is that credit report like? And not just for yourself individually as an individual business owner, but also for your business itself. What covenants are there? What promises, obligations do you have under those lending arrangements that you have to meet to make sure you stay in good standing with the bank so they don't call your loan? And account qualifications. What's necessary to maintain those accounts? The type of accounts, especially if you want to take advantage of some attractive fee arrangements. Low fees or no fees. What are those qualifications? And then lastly, what fees will be charged on the accounts, if at all? Those are key issues that you should make sure you discuss with, clarify, and document with your banker. Another key advisor. This one of my favorites outside of the attorney, insurance agent or broker. This is someone who should certainly be on the team of each and every business owner, regardless of the type. If you have an e-commerce business, you should still have some level of insurance for that business. But certainly if you have a public-facing business and one where you have a physical place of business, whether it's an office, a retail store, or some other physical location where the public is able to access, you certainly and most importantly want to have that insurance in place. Understand the types of coverages that you have and need, as well as the limits, and also what your liability risks are so you can appropriately insure for those risks. If you end up in a situation where someone has a claim against your business and they're looking to unfortunately sue your business, they typically are looking for a deep pocket to cover their damages or their alleged damages. For the average business, the insurance company's pockets usually are a bit more deep or deeper than those of the average business. So having insurance in place, especially as a backup to having an entity like a corporation or an LLC, is a must. It's something you absolutely should have. So make sure you have a good insurance agent or broker. Additional recommended coverages, perhaps depending on the nature of your business or the time of the year, your risks or the types of services, products that you may offer may vary. So you should consult with your insurance agent or broker to make sure that you have all of the coverage you should, all of the coverages you should, and also to ask whether or not there are some you should add. Next advisor, financial planner. This individual will help you to make sure that you're running your business in such a way that you're providing adequately, not just for current needs, but for future needs of the business, but most importantly for you as the owner, in connection with your transition, your succession plan, and also to help you meet your future goals. What are you looking towards in the future? What does retirement look like for you? A financial planner can help you plan for that. You're running your business in a way, making money, bringing in revenue. What money is available to you as the individual business owner? But most importantly, what funds can be invested for your future? Touch base with your financial planner about your compensation. How much are you making from your business? How much should you ideally be making to help you meet whatever goals you may have for yourself and for your family? Investment planning, retirement planning, business continuation planning. All of that very important to make sure that you're not just running your business day to day, but you're running it with intention. Intention to serve your customers, intention to maintain your employees, but also to build for and provide for your future and that of your family. Now we're moving into the B's in our ABCs. The first B, critical business structure. What is the structure of your business? Is it a sole proprietorship? That's you individually conducting business without any sort of an entity like a corporation or an LLC. That's a limited liability company. Is it a partnership? Are you in business with at least one other owner? If so, if it's structured as a partnership, is it a general partnership or is it a limited partnership? Critical distinction between the two, because there is the potential for personal liability with a general partnership as opposed to a limited partnership, certainly if the limited partnership is established appropriately. Is it an LLC? You can have an LLC that has a single owner, taxed like a sole proprietorship, or you can have an LLC that has more than one owner or a multi-member LLC. Is it managed by the owners of the LLC, the owners of the business, or is it managed by one or more managers who may or may not be owners of the LLC? Is it a standard LLC or is it a series LLC? We have two different types of LLCs, primarily here in the state of Illinois, standard or series. Understand the difference between the two and whether or not you have either a standard or a series LLC if the LLC is the business structure, the entity type for your business. So what is your business structure? Starting with the corporation, perhaps the most common, the most popular. Even as a corporation, there are two different types, distinguished primarily from a tax perspective. There's a C corporation and an S corporation. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of the most common business structures. And those are the ones that I've identified here for tonight's presentation, the most common. Sole proprietorship has a single owner. What are the advantages? It's simple. Very simple. It's the ease and cost of formation. Pretty much you're filing an assumed name document to conduct business under a name other than your own individually. There's no control shared with anyone else. It's just you. You're the one who's the captain of the ship and you're steering, you're doing everything. It's just you alone. It's not subject to double taxation, easier record keeping, and a larger sphere of activity. What are the disadvantages, though, of a sole proprietorship? Now, these are important to know. Depending on the nature of your business, you really shouldn't be a sole proprietorship. Good rule of thumb, if you're operating a business that's public-facing, open to the public with the public physically coming to you, or if you're selling products that have some level of risk associated with them or providing services that have some level of risk associated with them, costly or not so much, but still a cost, you should consider not having a sole proprietorship because unlimited personal liability. It has a limited lifespan and a limited access to capital. Banks and others are not too keen on sole proprietorships, so that's something to keep in mind. Corporation, the advantages, limited liability of shareholders. If a corporation is set up, that's started, formed appropriately, and it's maintained appropriately. I referenced earlier corporate formalities. If you observe those corporate formalities, you maintain, for example, accurate corporate records, you're not mixing together, that's commingling your personal and business assets, then that corporation will help to protect the individual owners, that's the shareholders, from personal liability. Perpetual life, ease of ownership transfer and transferring those shares of stock, as well as the ability to raise capital. Disadvantages, there are again those corporate formalities that you have to observe. If you do not observe those corporate formalities, your corporation could be subject to challenge. Someone may be able to do something that we call in the law piercing the corporate veil. That's moving past the corporate entity and getting to the individual owners and their assets. So you want to be careful there. You have to make sure you observe those corporate formalities. If you do not, corporation from a legal perspective, liability protection standpoint, would be moved aside and you personally could be attached. If it's a C corporation as opposed to an S, that's a small business corporation, there's double taxation. Taxes are paid at two different levels. First, paid at the corporate level on corporate profits. Second, at the owner level, the shareholder level, based on the dividends. That's the money received by the owners from the company. Also subject to franchise tax and paying state income taxes. And also, if the corporation does business outside of its home state, let's say, for example, we set up ABC Corporation here in the state of Illinois. If ABC Corporation, an Illinois corporation, moves across the border to provide products or services or otherwise conduct business, ABC Corporation has to get permission to do business across the border in Wisconsin by obtaining a certificate of authority. Once you set up an entity, that's something you have to be mindful of. Basically, with a corporation or an LLC, the two most common entities, they exist almost like a person. You think of them separately from yourself. And so you have to look at what's necessary for that corporation or that LLC to be able to lawfully conduct business. Now we're moving into our key connections. I'm going to move my slider down a little bit here. First off, cash position, customers and connections. We talked a bit earlier about cash position, very, very important. What is the definition? It's the amount of cash or highly liquid assets available to your business at a specific point in time. It's important because it tells how strong your business is from a financial perspective or how weak it is. You should monitor that frequently. Again, depending on the type of business that you have and the cyclical nature, if at all, of your business, seasonal nature of your business, you should monitor your cash position more frequently or less frequently. Let me adjust my presentation here. There we are. So first off, who are your customers? That's important. After we discuss your cash position, cover your cash position, you know that you're mindful of how much cash you have available at any point in time and what you need to run your business. Next, we turn to your customers, those who help you to bring revenue into your business. They're the reason you are in business. Who are your customers past, present, and also future? What are your plans for attracting those new customers? Who are they? Where are they located? What are their needs and how does your business provide for those needs? Why are your past customers important? Because those are people who've done business with you for some reason. It would be nice to be able to mine that same source for additional relationships, additional revenue. So keep track of past customers as well as those you're currently serving, but also have a plan for future customers that you want to bring into your business. Where are those customers located and how can you serve them the best way where they're located? Footnote from a legal perspective, as I mentioned, ABC Corporation crossing the border to do business in Wisconsin. If you have customers that are in a different state, lean into your attorney as well as your accountant to talk about compliance issues. From a legal perspective, if you have an entity in place, you may need to get that certificate of authority to allow you to lawfully conduct business and serve those customers in a different location outside of your state. From a tax and accounting perspective, you may have tax reporting responsibility or withholding responsibility in those other states. So keep that in mind. And what value do you offer your customers? And how do you communicate with them? Critically important, especially now during these times. Next, C, who are your key connections? Those are the people who are significant to your business, who help you serve your customers, or who help you source customers, or help you otherwise build your business and your key relationships. Those past connections, again, people that you may have been connected to or with in the past, who are the present, and what's a plan from a marketing perspective and from a relational perspective for building or adding to those connections. Where are those connections located? How do you maintain the solid nature of that relationship for future ongoing continuous business? What relationships form the basis for those connections? Are they family, friends, colleagues, business partners, mentors? Those are the 5 key groups of connections who add value to you and to your business and can help you grow your business and to plan for the future as well. And how do you communicate with those connections? For today's technologically driven world that we're living in, there are so many different ways to keep track of and connect with your customers outside of face-to-face interactions. Timing for business meetings, lunches, and otherwise, sometimes time is short, but you still have the opportunity to remain connected. We're connected tonight, even though we're not physically in the same location, we're still connected through the use of technology and Zoom. Are you able to maintain those connections in that way? How is social media beneficial to you and your business? Are you using Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram? What are those means of maintaining those close relationships? As I talk with different people about their connections, especially with regard to social media is critical, but it's not a substitute for substantive communications. Having someone be more than just a Facebook friend, but maintaining that solid connection from a real life connected friendship perspective, not just for business. Keep that in mind as well. So those are the ABCs, critical. Tips to remember coming out of tonight's presentation. Now, these next tips are coming from a place of my own experience in serving clients, where I've seen basically problems mostly, but also where I've seen successes, clients who are doing these things on a regular basis and the benefit that they've derived from that in their business. Most importantly, in staying out of trouble and not having to have me to help get them out of trouble, but also to help them to grow their business and to deepen their relationships, not just with those customers, but also with other key connections. And thanks to our friend, David Letterman from the past, I'm going to borrow from him and do a top 10, and we'll cover some of those. But as I look back on the experience that we had come March, April of this year, very difficult time. It was a scary time for so many. And when people physically were not able to, in some cases, be in their offices, and as we began to look at the tightening of the economy, businesses were in need of revenue. And we saw that wonderful federal legislation that came down providing for those PPP loans, as well as the economic injury disaster loans. There was information that had to be pulled together, documentation for people to be able to access that funding. And as a part of that, what I discovered was people who had difficulty accessing that funding, two of the top reasons: one, lack of documentation. They knew their entity type, but they didn't have the key documents associated with that. They were not up to date in some cases. You had articles of incorporation. That's the document that creates a corporation. That being the borrower seeking that PPP or that economic injury disaster loan. But when you look at the actual name that the business was conducted under, or in some cases the tax ID number was registered under, they were different. And so because the documentation didn't line up, or because the owner just didn't have access to the documentation, some businesses fell behind. And some cases were not able to get those valuable loans. So it's important to keep all of these tips in mind, but certainly in the midst of COVID. The second reason that businesses had difficulty getting access to those funds, that was lack of financial documentation. Being able to document how much revenue was generated by the business and how much money was spent in the way of expenses. Having a P&L, profit and loss statement, balance sheet, other key financial statements. In some cases, lack of accountants or lack of solid relationships with accountants made it difficult to access that information. For those people who had solid relationships with attorneys, solid relationships with accountants, they were able to pull that information together and get themselves signed up for applying for those PPP and those economic injury disaster loans. So what are the top tips for you to remember? Top 10 tips to avoid common business mistakes. First of all, consider forming an entity. And these are in order of priority, starting at the bottom, and we'll take our way all the way up to number 1. First off, consider forming an entity. Are you in a position where you should have an LLC or a corporation? Again, depending on the type of the business, you should have an entity in place to protect yourself from personal liability. Not conducting business as a sole proprietor, jeopardizing yourself individually or your personal assets. The next tip, know the basics of your entity type and structure. If you have a corporation, you certainly should know that you should observe those corporate formalities, making sure you have corporate records that are accurate and up to date. Also making sure that you're not mixing together, commingling your business and personal assets. That's if you have an entity like a corporation or an LLC. Knowing those basics, understanding those basics can help you to make sure that you observe the formalities, maintain your entity appropriately so you continue to protect yourself from personal liability. Always have a written contract or arrangement for key business relationships and transactions like those with your customers. Having a written contract for those customer relationships. Think of that fine print on the back page of the document, the terms and conditions for the sale of products or services. If it's not fine print, at least if it's something to document the terms of the relationship. Very, very important. Also helpful if something goes wrong. If there's a problem in the relationship with the customer, the vendor, or the supplier, one of the first things that the opponent will do, and certainly one of the first things that your attorney should do, is to ask you, is there any written documentation? And do you have a copy of it? Always, always, always read contracts, leases, and other documents. Anything that's going to obligate you to something or provide a benefit to you or your business, or will obligate a customer or provide a benefit to the customer, you should always read those documents, understand them before you sign them, and do not sign them if key terms are missing or unclear. I tell people all the time, you have negotiations with another party for the purchase or sale of something related to your business. There may be a lot of terms agreed to, promises made. If they're not in writing, very likely they're not real or enforceable. So it's important to read the documentation that's supposed to memorialize whatever you and the other party have agreed to. Make sure those key terms are there that you so faithfully and diligently negotiated. If they're not there, don't sign it until those items are added. Keep copies of signed documents. This is a huge one. So you have that written contract or arrangement. You've read it before it was signed and confirmed that all of the terms that are important to you, important to your business, are there. You sign it, always keep a copy of it. Especially important if there's a warranty involved, whether you're giving the warranty or it's a benefit, a warranty for you or your business. Make sure that you keep copies of that. So if something goes wrong, or if you need to take advantage of that warranty or serve a customer under that warranty that you have given or promised, you have a reference so you understand what the obligations are or the benefits are, especially for you or to you. More tips for us to remember: track your cash position on a regular basis, especially again in these times. Businesses hit almost immediately. I saw clients within a 24, 48, 72-hour period, business going nearly down to zero at the end of March, early April, as the world really didn't know what was going on or what was going to happen. Those that had not provided cash reserves, those that had not been tracking their cash position, had a very difficult time. Something for you certainly to keep in mind as either a new business owner or as an existing business owner. Maintain insurance. This is something that I see, unfortunately, with clients. That's why it's near the top. In some cases, when times get tough financially, in some cases, for some clients, insurance will be the first to go. It really should be one of the last, if at all, ever to go, because that insurance is your second line of defense. You set up that corporation, you set up that LLC, but it's backed up by, supported by your business assets. If there's a challenge, struggles with cash or adequate cash available, and certainly if you're in a business that has high liability risks, you need to have that insurance there as your second line of defense. That deep pocket, remember, for someone to be able to go after to satisfy whatever claim they may have against your business, as opposed to coming for your business itself, or unfortunately for you as the business owner. So always, always maintain insurance. Keeping your business and personal funds separate. Separate accounting, separate accounts for your business funds as well as your personal funds. Money's going back and forth should always have a label. That's something your accountants can help you with. If there's money leaving the business account going to you as the individual owner, why is that? Is it compensation? Is it a dividend or a distribution? Is it a loan? Or is it reimbursement of a reasonable business expense? Always, always money going back and forth should have a label, and in some cases should have documentation. Even if you as a business owner are loaning money individually to your business, preferably there should be some paperwork for that, whether it's just a promissory note or perhaps something more, loan agreement and a promissory note, to document the basis for that. Why are we doing that? To maintain that identity of your corporation, your LLC, as an entity separate and apart from you as the business owner, and to protect your business assets. Number 2, we're almost at the top: filing tax returns and paying applicable taxes. Studies have shown that businesses that start out, one of the reasons, or two of the reasons that businesses tend to fail, two of the top 2 reasons: one, lack of adequate capital, just not having enough money to not only maintain the business, but even to start the business. Second of all, not filing taxes, tax reports tax returns when due, when required, and not paying the taxes when due, and not paying penalties and interest. In some cases, there can be personal liability to business owners on the taxes of a business. So you really have to be careful there. Always, always, always file those tax returns when due and pay all applicable taxes when due. And finally, number one, keeping in touch with your key advisors. As you look at these top 10 tips, they either have tax, accounting, insurance, or legal implications. So if you remember your team from the beginning and you have an attorney, you have an accountant, you have an insurance broker, keeping in touch with all of those advisors can help you to maintain and follow all of the tips down below so you're avoiding those common business mistakes. So a lot of that work can be done just simply by having the right team and staying in touch with your team. Some resources for you to keep in mind. I put these here because they're ones that I deal with quite frequently, and also I refer to my clients, and I've seen clients, whether they're new businesses, existing businesses, derive benefit from, but especially those that are new businesses for the last two items. So the first of which, the Illinois Secretary of State's office. That's the agency that maintains the entity records. If you have a corporation, for example, limited liability company, limited partnership, those records are there with the Secretary of State's office. To even set up or establish one of those entity types, it's your first stop, Illinois Secretary of State, Department of Business Services. At this particular link, you can search to check availability of your new business name. You can most importantly check your business status to make sure that your entity, your corporation, your LLC is still in good standing and has not been dissolved. You can also file those important annual reports. You can also engage in some other online transactions applicable to the life of your business, like changing the name, adopting a DBA, adding owners if it's an LLC, removing owners, adding officers, directors if it's a corporation, also can be done and should be done through the Illinois Secretary of State's office. Great resources there. U.S. Small Business Administration, also excellent. Also excellent. They have a resource online at their website called the Learning Center. Great resources there for new and existing business owners, video tutorials, also seminars offered on a regular basis. Harper College, not too far away from the Schaumburg Township District Library, the Small Business Development Center, not just resources, but also people who are there to assist you in the life cycle of your business, and certainly if you're setting up a new business, to develop a business plan, identify your own strengths as a business owner. Harper College Small Business Development Center. And also the Women's Business Development Center. This in particular for women who are currently in business or those who are interested in starting a new business. Great resources there, how-tos, basics of any and everything applicable to a business you can find there at the Women's Business Development Center. And Patty, my apologies, I meant to put your information on there as the business librarian, business resources librarian for the Schaumburg Township District Library. I'll make sure I add that for future presentations. But great resources there. Each of those websites in particular, the last three, the last two of which will have links to other resources depending on the type of business that you have. You can pull those and access those online. Tips to remember as we close. First off, assess. You want to assess, number one, who are your key advisors? What is your business structure, if any, or should you have a business structure like an entity, for example? See, what is your cash position? Who are your customers and your connections? Where are they located? And how do you keep in touch with them? And how do you build and solidify those relationships with your past customers and connections, present, as well as those in the future? And take action to strengthen those relationships. Improve your cash position. Know your ABCs for business success. Now we'll take some questions from the audience. Patty?
Thank you, Tempia. Wow,
You're
you know
very
what?
welcome.
I certainly appreciate, I mean, well organized across the board, outstanding top 10 list. I mean, David Letterman could not have done any better himself. But thank you so much. My question was already answered. My question that I came in with was about the PPP.
Oh, okay.
And my concern for some businesses that I had thought were left behind and not understanding fully the reasons why. We do have one of our attendees raised her hand, and I had asked if she wanted to unmute, and she hasn't yet, but if she does have a question in chat, we will wait just a moment.
Okay. The PPP loans were so challenging for so many because, number one, great legislation. The rollout was a bit touchy. We had some issues there. And then lenders were overwhelmed. They didn't feel they had clear direction. So you had this short window of time initially for people to access these loans, and a short window of time, of course, to pull all the documentation together. And if you didn't have it and you didn't have anyone on your team who could help you access that information, it was tough for a lot of people. Some got left behind.
Did you find, without breaking any confidentiality of clients, that I think after 9/11, I found that more corporations started to develop different higher levels of emergency preparedness plans. And I didn't know if emergency preparedness plans also had included something at a pandemic level. Did you find that corporations were coming saying we had not factored that in?
Yes, absolutely. And even from a contractual standpoint, a lot of people began to hear this strange term, was strange to a lot of folks, force majeure. It's a clause in a contract that basically says that if the parties simply can't perform their obligations under the contract for these unknown or unexpected reasons, like acts of God, as we call them, tornadoes, hurricanes, that we're currently in the middle of the hurricane season. In those clauses, no one referenced a pandemic. No one referenced, viruses or any of that, that if they occurred and prevented the conduct of a business or a party from fulfilling its obligations under the contract, they were excused. So there weren't any penalties. Unfortunately, that wasn't planned for. So now, yes, businesses are beginning to do that, not just in having plans together, but looking at key contracts and relationships to make sure those also address these things that are now becoming in our lives more common.
Now, I do know that your firm has corporations, has businesses as their clients. Are there also employees that have come to you with concerns as well that they have about workplace safety?
For me, no, because I work primarily with the business owners, but I can tell you just friends and family and networking or friends who work for other businesses or own businesses, they have been having those conversations with their employees, or they themselves are employees and are asking those questions. I have worked with my business owner clients to prepare for those conversations with employees, those who have childcare issues or childcare needs, I should say, not issues, but childcare needs and need for flexible work schedules. Those who simply were afraid to come back into the work environment. How should those businesses prepare for employees to return safely, but how to have those conversations to make sure the employees are heard, so you're hearing their concerns, and then also how you as a business owner can address those concerns for the employees.
Reasonable accommodation.
Absolutely. And whether it's required under the law, just from a relationship standpoint, this was new for everybody. This hit everybody, almost without exception. Difficultly, just really in a very difficult way. So for the business owner as well as the employees, the importance of listening, communication, and just talking to each other and working things out in the best way possible for all concerned.
Well, like I said, your presentation, organized between the ABCs and the top 10, it took a little bit of the mystery out of a very complex subject. So thank you very much for that. I don't think we have that question coming in. I do want to make mention the sources that you recommended. I fully endorse each and every single one of them. I know that I have used in my role and for other purposes as well. We are really lucky to be in the Schaumburg-Hoffman Estates area, not only because of the fantastic chambers that we have that are active, but also for the SBDC that works in partnership with us out of Harper in the separate location.
Absolutely.
So thank you for recommending those sources as well as the library too.
Great resources.
Again, but we don't have any questions. I think if we would have been able to upload to YouTube, we might have had a few more to field. But the bonus is our asset is that we will be able to upload this tomorrow and that others will be able to view it. And so if you want to put your contact information up one more time.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to pull that up now.
First screen.
Let's see.
We can ensure that whoever views it from here forward will be able to reach your firm with any questions they may have alongside this topic.
Absolutely. I'll put this up now so you have that. And there you are. So my name with the firm name, as well as our main location in Hoffman Estates, and the phone and the fax numbers. And again, we meet with clients throughout the Chicagoland area. We have access to other office locations outside of just Hoffman Estates and Des Plaines. And we're certainly willing to consult with clients in the midst of COVID-19 through video conference, if that's preferred, as well as through teleconferences and communicating with clients by email. So many, many ways to communicate with us and to also connect with us.
Well, we really appreciate, from the library standpoint, again, you and your organization teaming up with us for tonight's presentation. We hope to work with you again.
Thank you, Patty. I really appreciate the invitation. Again, many thanks to you and the Schaumburg Township District Library. Don't hesitate to call on me. I'm happy to help. And for those with my contact info, I'm open to receiving phone calls, emails to chat about your business needs, whether you're just starting out or you're continuing with an existing business.
Tempia Courts, thank you so much. Have a nice night, everyone.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Bye-bye.